Welcome back to the channel, everybody. All you Hex Pulse degens, what's going on? Great to see you guys. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Thank you so much to Crypto Sloth and Ju Young for coming on. I know you guys are celebrating Father's Day too, so that's a big deal. But thank you for stepping away from the family time and taking a minute to basically we're going to talk to the new people and the old people alike. But it's been a while since I've talked about Hedron, and I've never had the pleasure of having you guys on. And you two are kind of the go-to experts when it comes to Hedron and Icosa. But a lot of old people have heard about it. It might be a good refresher in case you haven't heard about it yet. But there's so many new people in this ecosystem that I think really need to know about the power of Hex and the power of the additional things that Hex can do, which I look at Hedron like an extension of Hex, right? It just adds more functionality. If you want it, you can use it. If you don't want it, that's all right. You don't have to bash it or cry about it, but it's there if you want it. And it essentially allows you to take out a loan on your Hex stake in terms of another coin called Hedron. And optionally as well, it lets you wrap a Hex stake. So whereas before Hex stakes were not portable from wallet to wallet, the HSI, the Hex staking instance, you might hear us call them HSIs. That just means a wrapped Hex stake that you could hypothetically, if you wanted to, you could give it to someone else. Let's say your wallet gets hacked. You could transport it to another wallet before the hacker emergency end stakes you. And then there's this whole Icosa thing, which is just this crazy complex thing. It's really as simple or complex as you want to make it. And so I've got old videos about it if you want to check it out. Sloth went real deep into it, and he's got his own channel, his think tank channel, where he discusses strategies and all that stuff. But I guess I'll let you guys both introduce yourself. We'll start with you, Ju Young.
Sure. So I'm Ju Young. I created HSIwatch.com. It's somewhat of a portfolio tracker for like Hex stakes, Hedron stakes, Icosa stakes, and then also LP. So if you're providing LP on PulseX, you can see kind of your average ink earned per hour and per day. Yeah, I've been doing development now for probably about 3 or 4 years. I missed the Hex launch. I wanted to provide some sort of a tool at Hex launch. I didn't have any programming experience at the time, and later when Hedron launched, I had already well started my my journey towards learning programming and things like that. And I took the opportunity. I wanted to provide something back to the community, and that's when I created HSIwatch version 1, which was very slow, and just kind of getting my foot in the water. And yeah, there's been a lot of renovation to HSIwatch, and yeah, I hope you check it out. Thanks for having me on.
Nice.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thanks for having me on, Crypto Coffee. It's an honor to be on, man. I've been watching you since the Knights of the Crypto Roundtable days. So being on here is it's a big deal for me. I appreciate it. And
you're always
Ju
welcome.
Young, yeah, I appreciate that, man. And Ju Young, man, you got one of the killer websites in the community. So it's awesome being on here with you. It's been a while since we've been on a stream together, so I'm glad we're making it happen. But I'm Crypto Sloth. I'm a guy on the internet who talks about crypto. Kind of, yeah, right. Brothers in arms here, right? Kind of started talking about Hedron is where my channel was focused around at first. Hedron, Icosa stuff, liquidity providing. You can find me here on YouTube, Crypto Sloth. Look into Hedron.com. That's a website I created, and then CryptoSloth.info. That's about to drop too. So if you want to check that out, you can sign up to that. But yeah, I just I talk about things that are interesting to me, and fortunately, people have been liking to listen to me. So I'm very fortunate for that.
That's awesome. I'm going to put that website in the chat because it's yet another tool. Like, we've got so much community built tools in this ecosystem, which I love. And it really just helps break down. I'm assuming your looking to Hedron is closer to looking to hex.com, right? More of price statistics.
Not so much, actually. It's more calculators for Hedron and Icosa stuff. There are some charts in there. There's some Hedron inflation charts in terms of how much comes out and Hedron velocity. But a lot of it's around and we'll probably get into this, calculating the ceiling prices of Hedron and Icosa. Some good HSI deal calculators for the HSI auctions, which we'll also talk about. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what else is there. Yeah, but there's a bunch of tools for you guys for calculators in the Hedron Icosa system in particular.
Cool. So for the brand new people, just as a really simple explainer, I kind of mentioned what Hedron does already. It adds and extends the functionality of hex stakes. But how do you get it, right? You can obviously buy it on the open market if you want to, and a lot of people are speculating on the fact that it could sometimes act like a leverage play on hex, where it goes up higher and also it is more susceptible to the whiplash of the dips too, which is interesting. You know, it's kind of played out in reality. The community has definitely adopted it to the point of no return, right? So I look at it like, well, to me, it's already succeeded in the sense that it's reached critical mass, that it's not going to go to zero, right? So I'm a big fan, and for that reason, I'm not, a dumper of Hedron. I thought about it at first, right? I'm like, oh, just free coins. I really wanted to hit
See
the
ya.
button. Yeah, but I stopped. I'm so glad I'd stopped myself, because then ICOSA came out and Alex released. Alex is the creator of all these. For people that don't know, the light bulb moment went off for me, and I was like, oh shit, like this is the whole. It's a full circle, complete thing, and there's auctions for the HSI for the HSIs as well. There's so much to this, but the primary thing, if you want to get Hedron for free, you have to have a hex stake. So I love that part about it, is that it incentivizes more hex staking and proper longer term hex stakes too. So if you want to mint Hedron, or if you have hex stakes already, you could be leaving free money on the table if you're not minting your Hedron every time you end your stake. And in order to do that, you got to go to the original app.icosa.pro. I talk about that website a lot. It's just another front end for the hex stakes. It's reading all the same blockchain data. It just gives you one additional button to mint your Hedron, and you might as well do it, because it could be a couple million Hedron. It could be like $50, $100, depending on your stake. Thank you so much for the chat, for the tip, by the way. And
What's up, X-Live?
X Live says, some of my favorite people right here. Appreciate it, bro. Happy Father's Day. Procrastination team, what's going on? Yeah, that's right. So that's Hedron in the simplest high-level bird's eye view that I can give you. Pay attention to it, especially if you're a hex staker, or if you're thinking about becoming a hex staker. It's just one more value prop, one more ecosystem, and just like HEX, PulseChain, and PulseX are kind of all interlinked, I also believe that Hedron, Icosa, HEX have their own little trifecta triangle, and they've got. Well, there's some potential liquidity bonding that can be done with PHUX. That's super advanced. We'll talk about that later. I wanted to ask you guys both. Let's start with you, Jiyoung. Like, why do you like Hedron? Why do you care so much about Hedron and Icosa?
So for me personally, I wouldn't have been able to make my T-share goal without Hedron. So I'm not. I don't have a lot of money. I pay a lot of the things out of pocket. And the T-share rate has just continued to skyrocket. And there was a time there too when HEX was at its all-time highs, and it was just really hard to get a hold of any sort of T-shares. And one of the things that I really appreciate about Hedron, and I'm really grateful to Alex, the creator of Hedron, is that they have, again, like you mentioned, they created the HSI. The encapsulated hex stake that you can move around. And so when Hedron launched, it launched together with an auction system where it uses Hedron as the base token for auctions. So Sloth might have more information on this portion, but there was some sort of an event that went on where you'd make like an encapsulated hex stake, you'd sell it to the Icosa contract, and then those would get kind of filtered into the Hedron auctions and things like that. And it's really changed. It's really changed my life, and I've been able to get more T-shares at probably about 75, usually 75 to 60% discount of the going T-share rate, which has just been absolutely mind-blowing. So, that's why I appreciate Hedron. I think it's going to be successful on both chains. Obviously, there's probably going to be more utility for Hedron and Icosa on PulseChain going forward. But I mean, you just can't beat the HSI auctions. Are just they've been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, that's good, especially for the people that plan on buying those maximum length stakes. A lot of those are 5,555 days. So be prepared to be a long-term holder, right? If you're buying these things, but also as the markets mature, I really do think in this coming cycle, we'll see a more thriving market on the secondary sales for wrapped stakes. So the ability to wrap a stake and then sell it when, let's say, only 20% of the stake has been completed, that's a totally new concept, and it creates effectively what mimics a bond market in the real world, somewhat. And obviously not quite, but we're just drawing analogies, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, Sloth. Why should we
My
care
background's
about
not working.
Hedron?
Yeah. So for me, the thing that caught my attention about Hedron mostly had to do with like my time entering Hex, where it's like I got in at about 3 cents originally, and then basically kind of watch it go all the way up to 50 cents. And like during that time, it takes a little time to understand the value proposition of Hex, but like once you understand the value of T-shares, or once you're convinced of the value of T-shares, like you really try to accumulate as much of them as you feasibly can within your means. And so for me, watching it go from 3 cents to 50 cents, I was like, damn, I can't get my hands on these T-shares. Like one T-share is like what was like the goal for me, because that's pretty much, and I had to leverage a lot of my time to get that. And so I know, like, people who got in early, a lot of them were making 10 plus, 100 plus T-share stakes, and that was kind of the norm. And now I've watched that T-share rate and the price go away so much where I'm not able to obtain as much of the system's inflation as I would have liked to, given how much I value it personally. Hedron is essentially what I saw with Hedron is a second chance of accumulating exposure to T-shares, but just slightly abstracted away, right? So because Hedron inflation is tied to B shares, and you can only mint it every day that you serve a B share in a stake, the Hedron token is kind of a proxy B share in of itself, especially because it has that redeemability for T shares on the HSI auction. So I saw this as an ability to get a position in T shares, even though they're not directly T shares. And that's why I was so excited about it. In addition to a lot of some of the mechanics around it that like have price positive feedback loops through arbitrage that would lock Hex up for longer. So that, yeah, it would lock Hex up for a long time, pumping the price, and you would be incentivized to do that because of arbitrage. So there are a lot of reasons, but the main one is I got a chance to get exposure to a lot of T-shares again, and that's what really got my attention.
Nice. Yeah, kind of a similar thesis there then, and it's pretty cool for, again, people that might be new here watching. There's one cool thing you can do with the wrap stake and HSI stake is you can actually sell it back to the what's called like the auction pool, the Hedron auction pool. And in return, you can sell your wrapped hex stake and get Icosa coins back. So Hedron and Icosa are complementary tokens. They're two different tokens. Together, it spells icosahedron, right? Which is a fancy word for a shape that, when faced against a 2D plane, has a shadow of a hexagon, right? So it's there's a method to the madness with Alex Genius inventions, but yeah, you can stake them. You can stake them both. Hedron you could stake and earn Icosa. Icosa you can stake and earn both Hedron and Icosa. And correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think in the short term, Hedron and Icosa stakes might be somewhat more giving higher yield than even hex stakes. Is that true?
Yep. I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but I know towards the beginning, the Hedron pool was printing around the 87% APY, and then the Icosa pool for a while was printing over 100% APY. That's definitely gone down over time since less Hedron has been burnt. But I believe, yes, it's paid more APY and with less of a time commitment too. Than Hex, because to get that average 30% more or less APY, you got to be at least 7 years out. But with Hedron and Icosa, anywhere between 30, the max is 1 year. So like it doesn't matter how big you are, 365 days is your max lockup.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Sloth, but then at the auctions, when the auctions are going on, the Hedron is burnt, and
yep,
that's kind of where some of that yield comes from, correct?
Yep. So Icosa is also like a derivation of the T-share, but it's more abstracted away than Hedron. So Hedron's minted every day for every B share that you have, but Icosa is only minted when a Hedron token is burned. And so you use Hedron to bid on defaulted HSI stakes, which we can get into those mechanics later. But that Hedron that's used to bid is then burned, which generates the yield in the Icosa pools. So if Hedron is like, if the T shares and HEX is like proof of weight, and then Hedron is also kind of like proof of B shares, then Icosa is like proof of burnt B shares.
Yeah, and Hedron gets burned in 4 ways. Again, I do have an old video. It's even hard for me to remember sometimes. The Hedron that gets burned goes to the Icosa staking pool. Is what Sloth just said. But it gets burned by number 1. What we just talked about is you spend Hedron to buy these wrap stakes on the auction pool. That Hedron doesn't go to anybody. It just gets burnt, and that burnt Hedron calculates some new yield that goes to the Icosa stakers. You guys remember the other 3? I'm blanking.
Yeah. So whenever you take an advance on your HSI stake, you have to make payments every 30 days for part of your principal and a little bit of a premium. And so those payments are burned. So if you borrow 1 million Hedron tokens, maybe you make 1,000 Hedron payments every 30 days. That 1,000 gets burned, and then there's a little that like 100 of that is a premium. So at the end, you're going to burn like 1 million and 100,000. So that's 100,000 net deflation of the system. The other one is the proof of benevolence function, which is just a burn function. So literally anybody for the hell of it, they wanted to burn their money, they could, and then the Icosa and Hedron stakers and the Watsa holders would benefit from that by getting Icosa yield. I think those are the only 3 off the top of my head.
There's one more, but it was like a mistake. It was like was it defaults? Like people that default and don't pay their loans back on time. I don't know.
Yeah, so when you default, you go to the auction house, and then whenever you start the bidding, like that's a bid to bid on the HSI stuff. But when you default, no Hedron is burned at that specific instance, if I remember correctly.
So yeah, loan repayments, buying HEX stakes on the auction house, and I mean those are the 2 primary ways. And then the proof of burn function, which we have seen, some anonymous person. That might be similar to the origin address and HEX, right? They've actually it's proof of benevolence. So some guy burned a massive chunk of the supply of Hedron to basically signal that, hey, this might be an origin address, but you don't need to be scared about this thing dumping on you. Essentially, it's a signal of good faith of these origin addresses are here to essentially save the ecosystem if they need to, like a kill switch if something bad is happening. But they're by no means harmful or negative to the community. So
it's actually really cool because the OA acts kind of like the Fed for HEX, where it can kind of pull levers to adjust the APY as needed. And we saw it in like the adoption amplifier, preventing people from arbitraging the price. We saw them protecting from short-term traders on big payday. And that's only with like one kind of lever that it can pull, which is just like stake, no stake. But with the SA and Hedron, not only does it have that ability to enter and exit the Hedron pool to mess with the APYs there, but also it has this extra functionality where it can give yield to the whole system by burning coins, which is just a different lever that the OA doesn't have. Not to say it's better or worse, but it's just an extra mechanic that Hedron has on top of it.
Well, I mean, theoretically, the OA could burn coins or send them to a burn address. I just don't think that's something that they're interested in doing.
I guess technically the way it could do it is like stake a bunch of coins for the max and then emergency end stake it, and then that would distribute yield to everybody. That's a way it could do it. Yeah,
that's one way. Yeah, or you could just send it to 0x000000. Assuming nobody ever generates that address. So we've got hit the likes, guys. Come on, you want us to pump your bags or what? We've got some people want to know a little bit about what's WAATSA NFTs. You guys are probably so confused right now. So if you're new and you're confused about this, I totally understand. It's like we're speaking a different language. I highly suggest reading on both hedron.pro and icosa.pro. Follow them on Twitter, go in their Telegram groups, and go to their websites and just read the websites as much as you can to get a deep understanding of this. If you're one of those guys that likes complexity, if you don't care, just mint your Hedron, stake your Hedron on Icosa and chill. But there's some cool stuff here. So maybe somebody can explain what says to the people.
Yeah. So I mean, now Sloth, you're a lot more knowledgeable on this stuff than I am. But a Watsa, correct me if I'm wrong. It's basically an NFT that represents ICOSA stake. So it just keeps generating ICOSA yield, and then to get that yield, you have to burn the NFT. Now, Sloth, you can probably talk a little bit more about the details on that.
Yeah, so in the ICOSA contract, there are 3 staking pools: the Hedron staking pool, the ICOSA staking pool, and then the Watsa staking pool. In each of them, the unit of account, kind of similar to what the T-share is in HEX, that determines how much yield each person gets. In this system, it's points. And so for the Hedron and Icosa system, your points are determined by how many coins you stake. That's pretty intuitive. But the Watsa pool was special in that it was a pseudo sacrifice, where when you sent coins to the contract or the address, you got a certain number of points to the same dollar value of the coins that you sacrificed, and those points were attached to an NFT. And so in the same way that, like, if I had 10 points, Coffee had 10 points, and Ju Young had 10 points, we'd each get a third of the yield in the pool. The number of points you had in your NFT determines how much yield you get in the Watsa pool in Icosa. But the thing about it is, in order to get that underlying yield, you have to burn the NFT. So you forfeit your yield in the future, increase everybody else in the staking pool's position so they get more yield over time, and in return, you get Icosa. Now, going forward, there would never be any more Watsa NFTs ever created. So, like in HEX, you can get diluted over time by more people staking. In Hedron and Icosa, you can get diluted by more people staking. In Watsa, it's completely impossible to get diluted. You can only ever increase your position, because if people exit, you now have a higher proportion of points relative to the whole. And so it's like this game of chicken, where it's like the longer you stay in, the more yield you get, but you don't get your yield until you burn the NFT. And that's led a lot of people to really speculate on the value of these NFTs, because you can still trade them on the secondary market. So, like, the real winners actually in the launch of Icosa were the Watsa people, because they were able to get basically a solid 3x on OpenSea for every single dollar they put into the system. And we still see those premiums today, because people are speculating that eventually you may be able to dominate a large percentage of the pool, because no one else could ever enter outside of buying somebody else's NFT.
Yeah, that's cool. And so it's a game of last man standing, where there's only a certain amount of these Watsa NFTs that were generated at the very beginning. So they're not, you can't make them anymore. It's done. But when you unstake them, they're basically like stakes that when you unstake them, you get your Icosa reward. But the longer you wait, the more rewards you get, because it's a percentage of, the amount of people still left in. So we've got something like 20,000 Watsas out there.
Yeah,
And
we've had a lot burned.
Yeah, I don't know how many, but there's a bot on Twitter that every day tells us how many people burned them. It's always like 4 or 5 a day, it seems, and it's pretty good. I like seeing them get burned, because that means, if I'm one of the last 1,000 people, that's a giant reward for me in the very end. Whether that's 5 years or 15 years from now, I have no idea. Yeah, so we got a lot of people confused in the chat, and I totally get it, right? If nothing else, just look into minting him for free. If you have a HEX stake, mint your Hedron for free and just stake it. And, you have very little to lose with the free coin, right? Other than the gas fee. PulseChain, the gas fee is a couple pennies. So very little to lose, a lot to gain. Someone commented that it might look like a failed project, and that could be true. Like, look, it is very, very early. And I want to be like, I know it's a criticism, but I want to recognize the criticism, right? People could be looking at this as a quote unquote failure in the near term, because the prices are down across the board. And basically in the bull market, everything pumps, right? In the bull market, everything pumps, and people dig into the complexity. But I do agree that it's hard to see the success in the near term when everything is down so much, especially when we have the chain splitting off into you've got your Ethereum Hedron and you've got your PulseChain Hedron now. So there's all this confusion and frenzy about, not only in HEX, right? Oh, which HEX is the real HEX? It's like, but now people have to make this decision on PulseChain as well. So I guess I'm wondering, in your perspective, where do you see the future of this project going? In the bull market, like I said, I think everything's going to pump. And so I think it's too early to call it dead. But where do you see this going, both in terms of like, just why should it survive in the long term? And what chains do you think it will thrive on, both or just one?
Yeah, it's
Well,
going to zero, bro. That's
yeah.
it's done.
No, I mean, I'm a big proponent of the auctions. Again, like I would not have been able to get the T shares that I have today if it weren't for the auctions, because I didn't have the money to get that equivalent T share rate when I was making those stakes. And so I think as Hex continues to appreciate and does well in the future, and people are looking for viable, trusted ways to increase their Hex T-share position, I think a lot of people are going to have their eyes on Hedron and the Hedron auctions. So yeah, I honestly I don't think it's going away anytime soon. There are some huge stakes like 50 T shares. I think there's like 100 T-share stakes that are coming up in the auctions, and I would expect there to be similar incentives for people to create more, um, you know, sell back HSI stakes to the ICOSA contract to kind of keep that energy going. But it's just a great opportunity for anybody who believes in Hex. And again, while the prices are down, maybe there's not as much bidding on the auctions. When the price of Hex goes up and the T-share rate is very high, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more interest in the Hedron auctions.
Yeah, it's easy to forget the amount of interest that went into all the complexities in the bull market was crazy. People were digging into this thing, and that's where you guys were kind of born, right? Like, I mean, as a public personality, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a lot of people made names for themselves getting into these secondary markets or these complex extensions of Hex, so to speak. And now it's the bear market. Nobody cares about anything. They're just all like, "Oh, price down. Everything sucks."
It's all a scam.
Yeah.
Get out of my face with these scam coins.
Right. And it's harder to buy into the narratives, obviously, at the bottom. So it's like, "Oh, life sucks. Everything sucks. Fuck this." But I really do think if when the euphoria is back, people will start to care again about these narratives. And once they get a deep understanding of what these things do, it'll crystallize, I believe, in a form that like it will resemble kind of again a secondary bond market or a lending protocol based off your Hex shares that mimics what we have in the real world, just on a decentralized blockchain format. But yeah, Sloth, do you got any I don't know predictions, or what do you want to see happen regarding Hedron, Hedron, the two chains, and that whole thing?
Yeah. Well, so I'll start this off with a number that I like, or like a statistic I like to say a lot, to kind of get. I think it really exemplifies like how criminally underpriced Hedron is, and really puts it in perspective relative to Hex. So 1 billion Hedron. If you were to make a new stake today, in order to mint that many Hedron for the cheapest amount of money, you would need to stake 180 T shares for 15 years. And not only that, you would have to wait until those 15 years is up to get that full billion. So not only does it cost 180 T shares, which now I don't know how much that is off the top of my head, but the last I checked, it was in the six figures. Like it costs a solid six figures, even at, if not high five figures. And you have to leverage 15 years of your time to get a billion Hedron. Well, that's on the market for like 300, 400 bucks on ETH, $400 or $500 on PulseChain. Right? Like that's the discrepancy of value that we see if we're valuing Hedron relative to Hex and relative to the T-share, really. So when I see myself buying Hedron, not only do I see myself buying T-shares, but I also see myself buying time, because these coins only come into existence after time in these stakes have been served.
That's a good way to put it.
Yep. And so when it comes to the Ethereum versus PulseChain side, that's 100% dependent on what the market decides with Hex, right? The value of Hedron and Icosa is directly derived from the value of Hex on its respective chain. And so hypothetically, if we got a situation where EHEX was completely abandoned, then Hedron and Icosa on Ethereum would be completely abandoned. Hedron and Icosa on ETH proof of work and ETH fair are worth nothing because Hex is worth nothing, right? They derive their value from Hex, and so as Hex succeeds, you are able to derive greater value for the Hedron and Icosa tokens. So if they do well, I believe Hedron and Icosa will do well, especially as the ability to obtain native T shares personally becomes unobtainable again. And then you have people like me, Drew Young, and a bunch of other people, RH Max, Maxim, Bluey, like we're all talking about this stuff and we're all quoting statistics like this. And at some point, you're like, man, I can get half of a B share, half of a T share in Hex right now if I leverage a bunch of my time, or I can go buy 10 for a fraction of the cost in Hedron, and maybe I'll have the chance to get more of those T shares on the HSI auction if significant volume is coming through there, and then there's not that much competition. Right, so it's just another vector to get exposure to the fundamental thing that's giving value to our entire ecosystem and the thing we're all speculating on. And at some point, the value of how much exposure you can get to the T-share directly versus how much exposure you can get indirectly, it just makes more sense to go indirectly because you're getting more bang for your buck. It's just better speculation. It's just a better investment. And at this point, it's been out for over a year. I think it's proven itself. Throughout all of the, it's a dump forever token. Why would anybody sell their HSIs for Icosa? What if the HSIs auctions dry up? Like, we've gone through all of these narratives, and it's held up its value relative to Hex despite essentially what's been the worst downtrend in crypto we've had in a while, or at least the worst macro context crypto has existed in for a while. So when I think about, like, if it's able to survive something like this while Hex is doing so, I'll just say so poorly relative to what we all thought it could do in the last run up, like, it doesn't get worse. Like, I can't imagine a worse situation. And so for me, at least, the only thing that it can go is up from there. As more attention comes in, as we talk about it more and we get more people to understand the value of the T-share, it just logically follows in my head that people are going to find value in this system.
I love that.
And not only that too, but like Swizzlestick says here, Alex is cooking something up as well. There's been a lot of tweets from Alex and talk in the community, potential fork to Rocket Pool using Icosa as a insurance token. Watsa NFT marketplace potential. Alex is continually working to help bring more utility and function to these tokens. So I think in the long term, especially on the PulseChain side, because we don't need a Rocket Pool fork on the Ethereum side, but I think Hedron and Icosa are going to find some pretty good use cases here in the future as Alex continues to nurture and foster the little the Hex perpetuals that he's created here. So, or the Hex derivatives.
Yeah. So some people like to call these Hex derivatives, which they basically are. People that don't know, Alex is the founder of Hedron and Icosa. He's hinted at making some new additions to this whole ecosystem. Somebody's asking, there's a rumor about if he's building a marketplace for HSIs. I think that already exists, right? Isn't that called HSI or hexmarket.com?
Yes. So there is
people
a
aren't
place
using that.
There's not that much volume on that site, but there is a place where specifically designed for HSIs. But Alex is creating his own marketplace where the unit that you use to bid on these, not just HSIs, but Watsas more importantly is what he's creating it for, where you can sell and auction off your Watsa NFTs. You have to bid on it with Icosa, and a percentage of that is taken as a fee and is burned. So now we have some deflationary mechanisms for Icosa too.
Cool.
That was a big. When Hedron came out, that was one of the big criticisms that people had. They're like, well, this would be really cool if you only could buy the hex stakes with Hedron, but we're having that mechanic now with Watsas and Icosa, which is cool because also people, a lot of the discontent with Icosa is that it's a inflationary token forever and there's no burn. So now we're kind of dispelling some of those critical narratives that a lot of people have about the system.
Interesting. Very cool. And he even hinted maybe at INC. I don't know if he's going to potentially use INC as a token to use in order to buy these HSI or these Watsas. But that could could just be something I'm speculating on. I have no idea. So this is going to be a new marketplace, not hexmarket.com.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Because
it'll be on both Pulse and Ethereum.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of them, a lot of times the first time you try something, it doesn't get traction, and then you need to learn from what went wrong the first time. So, but yeah, so a marketplace to buy wrapped hex stakes, other than the auction house, right? With the auction house is when people defaulted on their loans and they're forced to go into the auction house, or they manually send them in there. But sometimes people just want to get rid of their stake 50% after it's 50% completed because they just don't want to hold it the rest of the 7 years or whatever. And that's fine. Somebody might be able to buy those t-shirts at a discount or a premium, depending on the market. And that's what this marketplace would be. So HSIs and Watsa NFTs both, because technically an HSI itself is an NFT or can be an NFT if you want. So there's a lot to take in here, guys, but take a deep breath and go check out the websites if this is brand new. I think it's worth learning, especially before we do this giant run up in 2024 and 25 that we're all kind of hoping for, right?
Yep.
So I want to get to the chat. What is a hex? Is that a joke? I don't know. If you don't know what hex is, I've got some older videos, but I think we have to make some assumptions here, right? That like I'm
Mystery pickup artist, this coffee's got a whole course for you, buddy. Don't you worry. You got the information's there.
Yeah. It's Hex is the world's first blockchain CD, man. All right, Helgo. Hex is what made Hedron, Icosa, PulseChain, and Helgo. Well said. Very articulate as always.
Could have said it better myself.
Cool. More Hedron burnt. Yes, Hedron. I know what you mean. Thanks for showing up, UFO to go. Good to see you in the chat. Let's see. Well, I find myself with a damaged main phone with 300 stuck in the staker app. Not sure what to do about that. Sorry, bud. Let's see. A marketplace for HSIs and WhatsAs where users can list their NFTs for sale. Yep, this is what we're talking about. Either list them for sale at a fixed price or an auction where the user can set a bid, kind of like eBay, right? An eBay for hex stakes. Pretty cool. And then Icosa gets burnt if assuming we're using Icosa as the payment method, right? Which also kind of puts buy pressure on Icosa too if somebody doesn't have any yet. Right? So yeah, I've been a long time Icosa and Hedron staker. Recently, I'm trying to figure out if there's anything better to do with my Icosa and Hedron. And have you guys heard of phux?
Yeah, isn't that the it's kind of it's kind of like PulseX, right? But it's made by the Fatty team.
Yeah, it's basically it's another exchange
like
with these so-called deeper liquidity pools where you can tie multiple coins together, not just two, right? So instead of always having to have a dual token liquidity pool, phux allows you to have as many tokens as you want in the liquidity pool. And it's actually a fork of Balancer, the protocol Balancer on Ethereum, which people are using a lot. And I've noticed already over on this phux that I'm going to make a video about this protocol probably tonight, actually, because I think it's so cool. But have you guys noticed there's somebody made a liquidity pool specifically for Hex, Hedron, Icosa?
Yep.
And I'm trying to find it right now. Where's the Icosa one? Icosa, here it is. It's called Alex Hedron Maxi Pool. Maybe I can show this on my screen. Let me just disconnect everything. Yeah. All right. Here, guys, I'm going to share my screen. And yeah, if you look at the screen, we've got all these new liquidity pools that you can potentially go into that people can make that you'll notice they're not as simple as just two tokens, right? So you've got stable pool that incorporates USDT, USDC, and DAI. And you don't have to put up all three. You can put up any one of the three. You could put up 2 out of the 3 or all 3 in any ratio you want. And people are making these clusters of coins to find better deals when trading in between all these coins. So somebody you'll notice made let me load more. Somebody made an Alex Hedron Maxi pool that combines Hedron on PulseChain, Hex on PulseChain, wrapped Hedron from Ethereum, wrapped Icosa from Ethereum, and then Icosa on PulseChain as well. And it's all weighted in a 42% P Hedron, 40% PHEX, 10% wrapped Hedron, etc. You can read that, right? And the liquidity providers are getting paid 20% APY for doing so, and they're helping people get better price discovery and just better deals when swapping one coin for another. So, any initial thoughts on this protocol?
Man, I don't know. I can't get out. I can't get enough of the PulseX ink farms, but I haven't taken too deep of a look at phux.io, especially given that it's just recently come out. I really haven't had a chance to take a look at it outside of the recent claiming function that they were talking about.
Yeah, it's brand new. It's literally like a few days old. So I don't know. It's might be a good idea. It might be a place I can park some of my coins in, let people trade in and out of them if they want one for the other, especially with all the innovations happening that hopefully will bring more attention to the whole trifecta as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I think Balancer V2 is a pretty cool system, a pretty cool protocol, and I'm glad we have our own fork where we put the assets that we like on it. I mean, in addition to just having diversifying our dexes, like the ability to have self-balancing liquidity pools, I also think is really important for people to arbitrage through. So like just the deep liquidity generally is just better, and more places to park our tokens to earn passive income, I think, is just better. Also, we have the ability to bootstrap liquidity a little bit better with their bootstrapping liquidity pools, where you could start with like say 98% of the token you're launching and like 2% pulse, and then the ratio will decrease over time so that like the price goes down, and it just allows people to start up a token with less initial funds and makes it more fair for people to accumulate to prevent like front running and stuff like that. Also, the way the pools are balanced, you can actually experience less impermanent loss for the coin that you have more weighted in the pool. If you think about it in terms of like the more weight you have in a pool, it's more like just holding that coin liquid. And like if you hold a coin liquid, there's no impermanent loss because you're not pairing it. So the less pairing you have, the less impermanent loss you have. So you can still earn LP fees while mitigating against impermanent loss. The only drawback to that is that just because there's another asset that has less liquidity, that pool has higher slippage. But because there's a diversity of liquidity pools that might have that asset, it can be routed through it so the slippage isn't as drastic for the end user who's doing the swaps. So I think this is a pretty powerful protocol, and I'm glad we have it, in addition to the other dexes that we're getting.
Yeah, super complex too. But basically, if you're transacting in larger amounts, especially, you just get more bang for your buck and have to pay lower transaction fees. If you're trying to buy $50,000 worth of PLS on PulseX, you might have to pay $5,000 in transaction fees. Not on Balancer. On Balancer, it's way cheaper. So I keep an eye on this. But we've got a rumor in the chat from a wild SJ. She's got a very spicy rumor. She heard that you're speaking at one of the PulseChain tour stops, Crypto Slot. The world has to know. It's true?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
That is, let me just dispel the rumors. This is absolutely true. You will see me at the Charlotte stop on the PulseChain tour.
Charlotte.
I'll be giving I'll give a 15-minute intro speak. So yeah.
Never been to Charlotte, but it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So are you guys in the North Carolina area? Hell yeah, dude! You should come. Come on by. I don't know how far it is away from you, but yeah, I'll be in Charlotte. I'm gonna do my best to make the Atlanta one, but I'll definitely be at the Charlotte meetup.
It doesn't even look like it's too
I would love
far.
to meet as many of you guys as possible. And if you want to hear me ramble, dude.
Nice, man. Your internet's a little choppy, but I think
if you like listen to me ramble for an hour. Oh, I'm sorry, man.
You're good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. I was gonna say if you like hearing me ramble for an hour on my channel, come watch me talk for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's like a quarter of the internet thing, but in real life. So.
Yep.
It's only an 11-hour drive for me. Maybe I'll have to do it.
Oh, that's
road trip.
Hey man, I'd love to see it.
If there's anyone you want to hear ramble, Crypto Sloth, I'm like, my mind is blown every time you speak. Like, the knowledge that you have on the Hedron and the Icosa system is just like mind blowing for me.
Yeah,
I don't know how you retain all that knowledge. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
by neglecting my dental school studies. No, just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
That's cool, man. You're gonna be a dentist?
Yeah, man. I'm in my last year.
Wow. Good. A lot more money to funnel into crypto.
I get to pump everyone's bags by treating people's teeth. I'm gonna siphon the community's money and pump everyone's bags. You're welcome.
These are crypto teeth, baby.
Yeah. Every implant I place is another 0.5% on the price chart. You just wait.
Yeah, some of those green candles just start pumping.
Yeah.
I'll know.
Oh man.
That's cool, man. Hey, do you guys want to pull up the websites you built? Let's pull up HSIwatch and just show people what it is. Ji Young, would you mind doing it? Because I think I'm connected to my wallet and I don't want to dox myself.
Yeah, let me jump on real quick. I've got some test wallets, I believe, on here. Yep. Okay, cool. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me just a second.
No problem. Sloth, they want to know if you're going to steal any nitrous oxide.
Brother, I don't have to steal it. I can buy it straight up.
Yeah, isn't it in like whipped cream cans and stuff?
Yeah, it's not that nitrous oxide. That's not the fun stuff that I can get. Trust me, I can get more fun. We'll say materials once I get my license.
Yeah. Well, I know who I'm going to call for my next festival.
Got a whole prescription pad. You just gotta let me take a couple teeth out first, then I can give you whatever you want.
All right, as long as you
let me know if it's a fair trade.
Put in some veneers, make me look better.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll start doing Hexagon grills with like the Hex logo and stuff on it.
Bro, that'd be so crazy. Can you imagine just like the Hex logo?
Right. Oh man, I don't need to do traditional dentistry. I can just give all the hexagons the grills.
That's all we need.
All right. Let's see. Where did the window go?
Quick question that someone's asking: how do you claim your Hedron once you mint it? It's the same thing. You just mint it and it shows up in your wallet. So it's there's no separate claim. Just mint it and it's there. Go get it. I hope that answers the question. All right. So, do you mind if I show it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I already did. Well, HSIwatch.com. Here it is. Why don't you give us a quick rundown?
Sure. So over here, you've got your wallets. You can put in any wallet. It doesn't have to be your wallet. You just enter it in here, and you can do it comma delimited as well. If you wanted to do multiple wallets, you hit plus to add it, and it gets put down here. You can see the total value across Ethereum and PulseChain over here, the US dollar value. And yeah, this is the main screen here. This is the main thing that it's used for. Up on the top left, you've got, or actually here up on the top, you've got your mining progress. So you've got your hex stakes and your principal and yield. So this wallet has earned 4.97 billion hex in yield. You've got your Hedron and Icosa stakes. And again, this is your principal Hedron. Yeah, and the yields are over here. It's kind of confusing because you also get Hedron yield from the Icosa stake, but then you also get it from your hex stakes down here. And then you have your INC. So these two wallets, no one's providing liquidity, and you can tell because they're not getting anything. And this is just a graphical bug. But if you're mining ink, basically what it does is it runs a calculation over 30 seconds, and it averages how much ink you've earned on average over the past 30 seconds, and then uses that to estimate how much ink you're earning per hour and how much ink you can expect to earn per day. Yeah, and you can see over here the amount of hex shares. So these two wallets combined, they have more than 1,000 T shares. They have 762 quadrillion shares. So I don't know if you want to call that Q shares or what, but it's a lot of T shares. And then over here, obviously the share value is the total share value that it would it would take, how much hex it would take to get this many T-shares at the current T-share rate across both chains. And then, yeah, I mean, you've got your liquid balances down here, and you've got your hex stakes all down here. You can click on this button right here to filter between just the regular hex stats. And if you click on the button, you can see specifically how much you've burned, like how much your original stake was, how much yield you have in your hex stake, how much Hedron is mintable, how much Hedron your stake will have by the end of your stake, and then the adjusted APY, which is the hex APY plus the value of Hedron in US dollar value. So a couple cool features here too. You can sort by any of these columns. You can also click on this button to export all of your hex stakes to Excel, which is pretty cool. And if you scroll down even further, you can see your daily mining progress across. This is PulseChain up on top, and this is Ethereum down on the bottom. And you can even like zoom in, and you can see like individually, like it shows you daily mine, total mined, payout per T-share, and then again your whole mining schedule here. And you can actually zoom in and see like, okay, this guy's got 2 stakes here. So you can kind of plan out your, click on this button to kind of move around, and you can kind of see your whole staking ladder from there. The only other feature that I think is worth noting, besides the quick links here, which are some pretty great community resources that I put together, just various people have made throughout the community, is up here you can click on, so you've got this watch list, right? So you can put in your token, any token you want to watch on PulseChain or on Ethereum, and it'll automatically detect it, put it in here. And then in currency view, anything that you have in your watch list will show up in your currency view. You can click on it to see the value of your hex or your liquid balances, roughly what would be the equivalent in whatever currency you're looking at based on the price that's over here in the watch list. So like the way that I use this personally is like, okay, let's say, for example, I've got 312,000 ink, and I wanted to buy some Pulse X. I could just click on Pulse X and get a quick estimate, like, okay, I could buy 102 billion Pulse X potentially. Or if I wanted to know, like, hey, there's an HSI auction that's coming up, a lot of T-shares. How much Hedron can I buy, because I need to get some Hedron so I can bid on the stake, and I can quickly see like, okay, I can roughly afford this much Hedron if I were to convert these tokens. You can also see up here, like in the any of these yields too. You can see like how much yield you've made in terms of whatever token is selected. So if I wanted to say hex and say like, okay, how much hex could I buy with my Icosa yield? I could just click on the hex over here, and now I can say, okay, well, with the Icosa yield that I've earned, I could buy 60 million hex roughly, on PulseChain. Or
That's
if I
definitely
wanted to
nice.
do
I
Ethereum.
use that feature quite a bit. Just
Yeah.
Pricing things in US dollars versus the token you want to buy. But yeah, it's
Hey
nice.
guys,
Nice
really
of you
quick.
to show us. Nice of you to show us your wallet there. You seem like you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I wish these were my wallets, but
Got a couple of Q shares, as they say.
Yeah. Hey, real
a new
quick,
term.
first, Ju Young, this is an incredible website, and I'm loving all the updates that you've been doing. You've been working hard, and it shows. But I do have to head out now.
Oh, okay.
Coffee, I really appreciate you, inviting me on. Ju Young, it was a
Sure.
pleasure to speak.
Yeah.
And I would love to stream with both of you guys in the near future. So we'll be in touch.
Let's do it. We'll show off
Sounds
your
good.
stuff next time.
Yeah,
Sorry
hell
we
yeah.
didn't get
I
a chance
appreciate
to.
it. No, that's all right. That's all right. There's plenty of time. There's plenty of time.
Nothing
All
but
right.
time.
Peace out, guys.
See you, dude. All right, just you and me, Ju Young.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, anyways, I kind of built this. Staker app was a big inspiration for me. And there were a couple features like being able to view like hex in terms of hex instead of US dollar, being like stuck to viewing the value in US dollar. That was one of the things I wanted to see. And then also, when you enter a wallet in here, it'll pull in. So you can see there's this type here. So you can
Yeah.
see these are all native stakes, native hex stakes. It'll show HSI, it's an HSI stake. And so with Staker app back in the day, I don't know how they are now, but you'd have to enter the individual HSI address each time you made like a stake because it's its own smart contract wallet, so to speak. And so the way I wanted to build something for the Hedron community and the Hex community, some way that they could just enter a single wallet and it would pull in all of their HSIs without having to enter each individual address. So that's the main feature. That's why it's called HSIwatch.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's awesome. Good way to track, guys. Good portfolio tracker. I've got to add this to the list because I'm going to make a video soon about portfolio trackers. And I'm just going to take a note of that. We've got like 4 or 5 now. Staker app, fatty.io, pulseburn.com is coming out with a portfolio tracker. Hex Scout, which I'm super psyched for that you're working on.
Yes.
And of course, HSIwatch for all the Hedron intricacies. So, yeah, guys, if you got any questions in the chat for us, hit us with the questions because now is the time. We're coming up on an hour, and I think we're ready to hop off if there's no questions. Hedron, guys, Hedron and Icosa, there's value here. It's really just it's really just a matter of time until people buy into the narratives again. You know, it's the cool thing that Sloth and Ju Young mentioned already is that these have stood the test of time. These have been around for over a year in the worst possible economic conditions that we've ever seen in crypto. We've never had to see a macro recession in the crypto markets. Like we have no idea that we had no idea the effect that quantitative easing would eventually come back to bite us with. You know, it's not pretty right now. And that's, you know, you guys that are still here at the bottom that are still believing, well, it's going to be a lot more easier to believe in all this stuff when the prices are 10x higher from where they are right now. And, you know, you can either take a leap of faith and believe before everyone else does, or wait until your confirmation bias is confirmed by everyone else that already bought the coins up 10 or 20x, you know? And so it's a matter of, I think we're really playing a game of seeing who's the early adopter and well, I'm not going to say the laggards, but who's the super early adopter versus who's just the bandwagon speculator that comes on after, you know? But this is something that I think is going to be around for multiple years, multiple cycles. Ju Young, you seem to be a guy that likes to accumulate HSIs, right? And a lot of these things that you're betting or not betting on, what's the word? Auctioning that you're buying in these auctions. They're 5,555 day stakes. So it sounds like you must believe in the protocol for a long, long time, right? And so what gives you that faith and confidence that, you know, these things are going to be here for 15 years. And you seem to be a guy that can really see the future in terms of that long-term vision.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you know, crypto goes in cycles and things like that. And we're kind of in a bear cycle right now. Like just the performance that I've seen in Hex, the things that have happened over this past couple years has just really opened my eyes. Like I told my wife, you know, it's like only in crypto do you get people who are like, what, only a 10x, or like what, you know, is, you know, in the stock market, people would be like partying or doing something like 10x, but in crypto they're just like, what, 10x, like what is that, like, you know. But yeah,
So true.
I firmly believe in Hex. I think it's going to be around for a very long time. I made the mistake of so I made, when Hex first launched, I made a lot of shorter term stakes and medium term stakes because I was kind of wary, right? And I really regret that. You know, it really has been the stakes that I have made have been very life changing. I expect when this next cycle comes around, it'll be equally life changing for the people who do get into HEX. It's just incredible. So as stakes end and as the T-share rate continues to increase, you know, people are going to have to invest more into HEX to get that daily yield, you know. And as there are fewer and fewer T-shares out, you know, the daily payout is only going to get better and better. And we've already kind of seen that on the Ethereum chain as people EES to quickly get into PHEX or things like that. You can kind of see a divergence where the Ethereum version of HEX has more daily payout at the moment, and I think we're going to just continue to see that divergence grow. But over the course of 5,555 days, the daily payout like is gonna be pretty big. So you know, the real winners of HEX, even when, you know, Ethereum was forked and PulseChain was created, the real winners were the ones, the long-term stakers, I feel like, you know. So uh I saw Hedron as kind of like my way to uh, kind of go back in time to when the T-share rate was actually like somewhat obtainable for me. So for me, I was just eternally grateful to Alex, because again, those were going, you know, when it first started, they were like 85, 80% discounts. Like there were some pretty good discounts. And now I've got more HEX than I ever dreamt of you know, having. So for me, I'm a firm believer with Hex Scout coming out too. We've got more Hex onboarding tools and things like that. And as Pulse Chain continues to grow, the community continues to grow. I think that both chains, both eHex and pHex, are going to see new onboards. I feel like they're offering different types of CDs. Like when you go to a bank, you have different kinds of options, different depending on your investing strategy, I guess. And so I look at it from that perspective, and I think there's definitely going to be a market for both. So I'm in it for the long term.
That's awesome. It's refreshing to hear. It's something that's not popular with a lot of people that are brand new to crypto. I think this game attracts a lot of short-term minded people that are expecting gains in 1 year or 1 month or even 2 years. Seems kind of short term, right? But we also do have to remember to take profit when there are highs, and that's why the staking ladder really does work. It's because you don't have to time the market. You know, whenever there happens to be, if you have a rung of your staking ladder, let's say every 6 months at minimum, right? Maybe more. The bull market could peak in 2025 or 2026, and theoretically you'd have a stake or two expiring then, where you can then take profits on that if you feel like it's the top of the market. But you're still accumulating with these T-shares, you're still earning interest for future cycles and for, like decades and beyond, essentially. And that's hard for people to believe in when it's such a new technology. We don't know what the crypto landscape is going to be like in 10, 15 years. But I mean, we can be reasonably sure that if HEX has had 100% uptime by now, audited 3 times, immutable code, it's probably not going anywhere, right? It's just a matter of now a battle of onboarding, a battle of getting people to believe in crypto over the Federal Reserve and that whole system, which, I mean, that should be obvious for all of us that are kind of seeing the legacy system crumbling around us. But it's not so obvious for newcomers coming in that look at crypto still as a casino. Okay. So there's a lot of people here that maybe it's their first cycle. Maybe they bought the top in 21 and that's all crypto is to them, is a casino. So I just want to point out that the idea of buying these 15-year stakes sounds absolutely outrageous to certain people, that just can't fathom that. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it did for me at first too. I was really hesitant at first, and I regret it not making that decision at first. I think one thing that people don't look at, and I mean this goes for like the liquidity pools too in PulseX V1, where there's the ink farms, right? You're earning LP, but it also is equally true for HEX, and that is when the price is down, people are looking at the price, especially the people who are holding liquid. They're looking at the price and they're like, "Oh my God, I just lost all this money," when in fact, when the next cycle comes around, or there's the next all-time high, they're actually going to be in a good position if they have a HEX stake instead of holding liquid. If they're like, well, it's a bad time, maybe let's just stake it for a year or 2 years or whatever. Maybe make a staking ladder. So the interest that's being earned actually kind of reduces the how much it's actually down. So I mean, it could be down 90%, but if you're making APY on your HEX, or you're earning liquidity, or ink, you're actually you're up compared to the rest of the market who's just holding liquid. So for me, it just makes sense. And the things that I've seen the community build and just kind of gather around and rally, I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, we're going to be around in 15 years. But yeah, having kids, I never realized how fast time actually goes by until I had kids. So
Yeah, it seems to make more sense to people that have families, because you can plan for these. Oh, my kid's graduating in 2030, something like that. It's hard. It's hard for even me because I'm a younger guy, not married, and it's hard to get a grasp of time like that. But that said, I want to just put out a really fair warning to everybody. I don't want to see people just only buying maximum length stakes as well. I strongly believe in the ladder system. And a lot of these HSIs that are up for auction in the Hedron system are maximum length 15-year stakes. You're going to want to have some shorter ones too. Okay. I like nothing shorter than a year is my personal preference, but 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, like when the bull market comes back, you want to be able to celebrate and capitalize and hopefully take some profit, and hopefully not let the euphoria suck you into buying even more at the top. Right. But these are great times to accumulate and think about the future. And let's say you have a 4 or 5 year stake that lands in the next bear market. Well, theoretically, I mean, the way crypto pumps work and cycles work is that even the bottoms of the next bear market are still higher than the bottoms of the previous bear market. So anything you're buying now, yeah, it might not be 100x higher, but it might be, your value still might be 5 or 6x higher in the next bear market. At the next at the next low point. And you might say, oh, that sounds lame, 5 or 6x, but like you mentioned, look at any real world investment, stocks, bonds, real estate, and what are you investing in that's going to do that? And really, I look at crypto as the way out in the sense of it's hard to find an asset that can do multiples of ROI. I mean, people, like you said, they're partying, they're celebrating at 40% ROI. That's a 0.4x or a 1.4x rather. So people are loving that in the traditional system. That's if someone makes 20% in a year, that's like a crazy good year. Whereas it's funny because crypto people, we're kind of spoiled in a sense where we feel like we need these 100x's, 1000x's, but we also realize that we do need multiples of ROI. We need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6x's to beat inflation because this decaying system is literally sucking all of our purchasing power away. We can't get on top. Like we can't escape this rat race that the system has set us up for, to fail essentially. But I think we also need to count our blessings too and just realize that even if you don't get, you're not gonna time the bottom and the top, right? So you're not gonna get, even if the price goes up 1000x, you're maybe gonna capture. You'll be lucky if you capture 300x, and that's still life-changing money. And even in the bear market, because if we don't fall below previous cycle lows, maybe you're still up 5 or 6x. I mean, that to me, and that's basically what happened to me, right? It's like we went up a whole bunch, we went down a whole bunch. I'm still higher than I've ever been, in terms of my net value, even after the 90% dip, because if something goes up 10,000x and goes now down 90%, you're still up 1,000x. That's how the math works.
Yeah.
If something goes up 1,000x and goes down 90%, you're still up 100x. That's how the math works. If something goes up only 10x and goes down 90%, well, then you're back to square one, right? So you just got to pick things that are going to pump pretty hard and hopefully settle higher than they were in the previous low. That's all I'm trying to say. But we should be grateful, even in, let's say there's a bear market in 2027, we should still be considering ourselves grateful and visualizing us with our crypto bags at that point in time. Maybe it's a new low and we're teaching a new class of people to get into the markets because that'll be a new, the next time to onboard. But we should still consider ourselves blessed to have bags that have done multiples of ROI and not just 20-30% wimpy little stock market gains. So yeah, that's my rant, I guess.
For sure. I actually, when I started investing in HEX, I was still caught up in the rat race, and it's just like you get debt, and then it like keeps compounding and building. And my friend had told me like, hey, HEX is launching pretty soon. You should invest in it. I was like, nah, I've got credit card bills and things like that. I gotta pay, and I was putting 100% of everything I could towards my credit card bills and not investing, even just a sliver of that, not putting it aside for investing. And despite that, like I felt like it was getting nowhere. It was like the same. And so what I did is I started putting a little bit away to invest in HEX, just every paycheck. Probably more than I should have. It was a little bit risky, but I was like, if I'm gonna do it, I might as well do it as much as I can at first, and then, I'll go back to paying bills or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's changed my life. Like you said, I'm up more than I've ever have been in my life. I'm super grateful to Richard Hart, to Alex, to everybody, to you. I started watching your videos way back in the day in Hodl Dog. So yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks. It's a really great community because we're all starting this together. It's grassroots, it's organic. But yeah, if you believe in crypto, that crypto is going to survive, I think it's a pretty safe bet to believe that HEX, PulseChain, PulseX are going to be right there, leading the way in terms of. I mean, the technology is one thing, but the people, the community behind it promoting is totally like nothing we've ever seen before. So, guys, we're hitting at 1 hour 11 minutes. Let me just take one last look at the chat. Thank you, SJ. Smash the like, everybody. Salvatore has one question: can you stake HEX from Ethereum on PulseChain, or do you have to send it back over the bridge? So you can buy HEX on PulseChain and you have to stake that on PulseChain. But then there's also HEX native to Ethereum. Or sorry, there's also HEX native to PulseChain. So there's HEX on both chains that's native to both chains. When the fork happened, the total supply split in two. And so there's a whole bunch of HEX that still lives on Ethereum and a whole bunch of HEX that now lives on PulseChain because it forked. So yes, you can stake HEX from Ethereum on Ethereum, but you cannot stake HEX from Ethereum on PulseChain. You can stake native PulseChain HEX on PulseChain, and you can stake native Ethereum HEX on Ethereum. So hope that makes sense. And at least that's the way things are right now. Alex, maybe some other people have hinted at adding functionality there, but yeah, you just got to stake HEX on whatever network it's native to. So when you bridge it over, you can no longer stake it on that network. All right, guys. I am going to get going. Thanks, everybody. Like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next video.